Last week on Animation Super Basics.
Next week, we're going to be talking about squash and stretch.
Liar!
Hey, what's up, everybody? And welcome back to I guess you're not welcome back to the 5th episode, but welcome back to the series. This is the 5th episode of Animation Super Basics. This one is going to be about the text animator. Something I completely forgot about while I was making the series. So that's why I said I was going to do something different, but now I'm doing this. Deal with it. Let's take a look at what we're going to be creating today. All right, so we're going to be making this little animation right here using only the text animator. We're also going to be making this simple little thing, also using the text animator. All right, let's get started by demonstrating what the text animator does and what some of the settings are, and then we'll go into creating this. All right, so we're going to create a new comp. We're just going to call this demo, and 30 frames per second, 1920 by 1080. Doesn't really matter. It's up to you. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to type in U for no reason. Here we go. We're just going to type in a bunch of periods. Move this to the center. Make sure our paragraph is centered. Cool. Let's keep going. So I'm just typing in a bunch of periods. I have the height set to like 267 and then the width set down really low. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to twirl this open here, and we're going to go to this animate thing. We're going to set a position. Now, when I move this, you can see that all of our little dots move down. So if we open up our range selector here, we have this offset. And as we pull this to 100%, you can see what's happening. So let's set a keyframe, starting at 0, and we'll go to like 1 second, 2 seconds, and we'll go to 100. Hit N to shorten your comp there. So you can see what's happening here. Now, if we go down to advanced here, we have a lot more stuff that we can get into. We can adjust by character. You can do characters excluding spaces, and you can do the animation by words or lines. So let's put a space here. Now that's a whole nother word. Now you can see what that's doing, right? All right, so let's delete that space there. All right, set this back to characters. And here's a pretty important part. Let's go to the middle of our animation here. And right now this shape is set to square. What that means is it will start animating from this first period. The first period will move up, and then it will go on to the next one. So if we set this to ramp up, which actually with ramp up, you have to go down below 0 to negative 100. And you can see what that's doing. Rather than moving them up individually, it's moving them up in a line, kind of ramping up. So then we also have ramp down, which, does the opposite. And we have triangle. As you can see, it creates a triangular shape. Maybe you can see some things that you can do with that already, right? All right, so now we're going to move on. We have round, which, come on. It's pretty obvious what that's going to do, right? It's going to create a round one. So we can go down to smooth, And now we have a rounded, but it's also curved or smoothed out at the ends. Bloop, bloop. We also have these ease high and ease low. This is easy ease. So if we go to the middle here and we turn the ease high up, you can see at its peak, it kind of flattened out because we're creating an easy ease that kind of extends out, or a Bezier type curve that extends out here, like we've done in our graph editor. And then we also have easy low, and that will affect the starting and end points and create a little ease on each end. All right, so then we also have under here, randomize order. And that randomizes and of course you can change the random seed to get something you like. That is basically the text animator. All right, so let's get to work on making this animation. And I'll show you how you can put us all together. And we're going to create a new composition, and we're going to call this text animator demo. Same deal. Hit OK. So, all right, so now we're going to create our background. So we're going to create a new solid by right-clicking down in here. And we're going to make a very light gray. All right. And we're just going to duplicate that. Command D. And we're going to hit Shift Command Y on the bottom one to change this to a medium gray. Okay. Click OK and new. And we're going to take our top one. We're going to go to our ellipse tool and double click on that. Just hit F. Feather it out a whole bunch, and boom. You have your background. A nice, clean, simple background. And we can just Shift Command C to pre-compose that. Call it the background, BG. All right. So now we're going to create our text. We're going to go new text, and we're going to type in text animator. Oh, wow. All right. So let's set this back to 100. Set this back to 100. And there we go. Make this a little smaller. Bring this up. And then make sure this is aligned in the center. Here we go. So now we're going to twirl this open. We're going to go to animate, and we're going to select position. Now let's zoom out a little bit. So I've been working in After Effects for a while, and this is actually ridiculous that I'm just discovering this now. I mean, given the amount of days that I've spent inside this application, you can click on your middle mouse button and move your composition around. I am just discovering this, and that's sad. I'm kind of embarrassed about it. I always used to do the hold down space and move. So I accidentally discovered this. So you can move your composition around by clicking on your middle mouse button and dragging. All right, so we have our text animator here. We have our position set, and we're going to bring this down. Now, once it gets past here, you can't see it. If you can't see like a bounding box here, Shift Command H. That'll bring up your overlays. Move this down, and we're going to move this to about here. And we're going to move it to there for a very specific reason. Maybe up a little bit more. There we go. All right, so now we're going to twirl open our range selector here. We're going to go to offset, turn this all the way down to -100. We're going to create a keyframe. Then move to about 1 second and set it to 100. And under advanced, we're going to change this to ramp up. So now we have our text moving up. All right, so we have this animation moving up. Now we want to add another position to here. What we want to happen here is as the text goes up, it's going to kind of overshoot up here and then come back down to this position. So we can go to add and select position and nothing's going to happen. We're stuck with this position on this animator. This is animator 1. Let's select it, hit enter, and let's call this position main. And actually, let's signify that this is an animation thing so it's easier to find. Any position main. So what we can do is with this selected, hit Command D to duplicate it. So now you have double the position. So what we're going to do is we're going to change the position. We're going to start off here. We're going to bring this position to 0. And that's where it was originally, but we're also going to move it up. So we're going to move it up to about here. Now, if we hit U and open up these keyframes, if we select these two and we offset them, probably we'll say about there. See, the thing about the text animator is it's clunky. I don't see it as intuitive. I see it kind of as counterintuitive. It's kind of annoying and frustrating to work with. But there is ways of making it easier, and that is by breaking down your properties into separate animators. This is how you get the look that you want to get. So we can maybe take these two and move them in. Move that in as well. Maybe hold down Alt and move them in like so, maybe to half a frame. Maybe that's too much, so we can bring this out a little bit. Your position of your second one is going to affect the look. So you see we kind of have like a quick thing, or we can kind of stretch this out. All right, so we have our second position. So let's do this. Let's open this up, close our Annie position main. We're going to select the second one and we're going to call this Annie position overshoot. Now, in the original one, we had a flipping of the text like that. But at the same time, it also changes the color. So let's start building that now. So we're going to duplicate our Annie position overshoot. All right. And we're going to actually select the position and get rid of it. But we're going to add property rotation. Remember to get rid of these keyframes and set this to 0. Here we go. Now you can see that we are able to rotate our text, but we only are able to rotate it in one direction. So if we go to add in our third instance of Animator, go to property, enable per character 3D. What this is, now you have an option to rotate on X, Y, and Z. So we're going to be rotating on Y. We're going to go to 180. Set this to -100. And we're going to go to about here. And we're going to create a keyframe at -100. And we're going to do a flip. Maybe shorten that down a little bit. There we go. So now on top of this, we can add a property and fill color. And we're going to do hue. And we're going to go to the beginning here, and we're going to change our text to a magenta. Here we go. Boom, just like that. So now, as it rotates, it turns to blue. All right, so now we're going to create an out animation. So what this is the words start separating apart and then they blur and disappear. So we're going to duplicate, well, we're going to rename this to Annie, say, rotation. And we're going to duplicate this. We're going to go in to our range selector, set this to 0, and then we're going to go and click on offset. And we're going to get rid of our rotations and our hue. Get out of here. And we're going to come to about here. Maybe make this 3 seconds long. And we're going to add property tracking. So we're going to add a tracking here. And we're going to set the tracking. We're going to just bring this out. And we're going to go into advanced. And we're going to change this from characters to lines. And maybe change this to smooth. So we're actually going to do the reverse of starting off lower and going higher by starting higher and going off lower. So we're going to go to 2 seconds here. We're going to set a keyframe to be at 100. And then maybe go like, you know, almost half a second in and set this to 0. Okay, maybe not change this. Oh, yeah, that's right. Change this to square. There we go. All right, so now we also want to add property, blur. Go to this last keyframe here so we can see our blur. And we just want to blur it out. And we also want to add where's opacity? And we're going to set this to 0. All right. And maybe, you know, that's too quick. So let's. There we go. That works. So that's basically the text animator there. What we can do to add more life to this is if we go and select toggle switches and modes, we can click on this little icon here, or this box underneath this icon. That's our motion blur. And we can turn on motion blur. And the motion blur is actually just another tool that is used commonly in animation. All right, so we have our text animator layer going. All right, so now we can rename this to Annie tracking / blur. Why don't we call that? There we go. All right, so that's our last and final thing. Now what we're going to do, we're going to create another composition here. I'm going to call this light demo. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to create a new text here, and we'll just type in AIP, and we're going to set this to interstate, which is another Adobe font. Pick it up on your type kit, and we can just scale this up, make it nice and big, center it, and then we can also go into character and set the color. Maybe make this a bright gray here. All right, so now we're going to do a tricky thing. We're going to duplicate our AIP. And for this bottom one, we're going to go back to toggle switches and modes. For this bottom one, we're going to set the track matte to alpha matte AIP 2. So we're going to set it to the top one, because we're going to go over to effects and presets and add a fast box blur. I use this trick all the time. Thank you, Andrew Kramer and Video Copilot, for introducing this technique. But and then we're just gonna bump up the blur radius till we have this nice like little light panel look. So now we can twirl this open, go to animate, and hit opacity. And we're going to go to the range selector, advanced, and we're going to make this sure this is set to characters, square, and we're going to turn randomize order on. So we're going to set the opacity to maybe 50%. And then under offset, actually, maybe we should set this to all right, so under offset, rather than making keyframes and animating this, we're going to do another thing, and that is add an expression, a wiggle expression. So we can do that by alt-clicking on the stopwatch here for the offset, and we can type in wiggle, parentheses, and we're going to do about 12 times per second, and increments of 100. So starting off on 0, it will go all the way up to 100 and all the way down to negative 100, and everywhere in between randomly 12 times a second. This random light box flashing, flickering, basically. And if that's too much, you can, change this to like 75. If you only want a little bit of flicker, or a lighter flicker, if you will. All right, so we can also add a VC color vibrance. I love this plugin. It's really great for color gradients. And we can just drop that down on top of our AIP. Maybe change this color to yellow. Just like that. And we can actually brighten up. Here, let's do this. Yeah. Let's brighten that up. So there we go. Nice little simple trick you can do to create a kind of flickering light using the text animator. All right, so I think that's it for the text animator and for this episode today. All right, thanks for watching the series, and I will see you next time.